Super, welcome. This is going to be experimental recording. Normally, I used to do my recordings, and this purpose of this video or this live stream actually is to get a video to my YouTube channel, Human Enhancement with Konstantin Nikkari. So normally, I would have recorded this in advance and then uploaded to YouTube. But since my desire in me is to learn to speak to a live audience, I'm going to start doing this way. I'm going to stream, and this is a live stream to Twitch and Kick. I'm going to stream there, and then after, when I finish my stream, I'm going to upload the stream with maybe the beginning and the end cuts to YouTube. I think this will eliminate the necessity of trying to be perfect. A slight problem that I have. While I talk, I can now activate chat, but probably there is not much people in the chat. So we see the chats in the window now, and if there is somebody, let me know. But the important thing, while I do this presentation, I'm not going to answer questions, but I will answer questions after my presentation. So if you are here, please feel free to put a line into the chat room, and then I will get back to that after my presentation. So let's remove the chats from the recording, and let's dig right in here. Up. Yeah, that didn't work well. Well, that's why I do this, because it's experimental. So if I press this again, okay, yeah, it's going to move. Okay. I need to change the key shortcuts, but I will do it later. So now you need to bear with me and just look how my screen is going to move. And okay, so let's begin. This live stream is going to be about the results that I got from my master thesis. I recently, okay, so it's going to be about that. My master thesis topic, the headline was The Augmented Police Officer, a design fiction study of perception of brain-computer interface use in law enforcement. My name is Konstantin Nikkari, and the channel that I'm going to upload this live stream after is in YouTube, and you can find it YouTube/@FKN, Human Enhancement with Konstantin Nikkari. Couple of links. Let's put this stuff. No, that didn't work neither. I think you need to use the scenes from here. Not good. So here. Right. So some links in the beginning. This is going to be my speak over of results that I posted in my blog post, and you can find the blog by going to konstantin.fi. Important link also is the YouTube channel link over here. I'm going to publish, and I am already publishing material about human enhancement, which is highly interesting topic, how we enhance ourselves through technological means, medical means, and spiritual means, and action. Then 2 channels that I simultaneously stream this are in Kick and Twitch. You can find me there by going to the address and typing /Konstantin Nikkari. Now, something that's remarkable for me is that my master thesis has been downloaded today 192 times. So that's almost 200 times. And please understand that master thesis is it's like it's something that even our mothers do not read. So the supervisor might read through it. Sometimes they just, glance through it. And that's the only person, in addition to you, when you do a master thesis, usually who reads the thesis. But in my situation, for some reason, and I'm very happy about this because the topic is interesting, people started to pay attention to my work. And I think in a week, it might go over 200 times. So 200 times of download that for a master thesis is remarkable. As I said in my blog post that I published my master thesis results, in this video and live stream, I'm going to also go through them. So there is 4 topics of results, which one is the read-write threshold, meaning that when it is okay to read the brain and when it's not, and when it's okay to write to the brains and when it's not. And then there is inside-outside perception gap, which means that in my study, I interviewed also police officers, and also I interviewed normal citizens, and they had different opinion about brain-computer interfaces, and this gap revealed interesting finding. Then the third result would be the cognitive dependency and NPC-ification. Fourth one would be mental privacy and public trust, that what public thinks about brain computers. And then a couple of words about discussion and good brain-computer interface design practices. Now, let's go to the first one, the read-write threshold. So the brain-computer, and I do apologize in advance that I'm not going to go through profoundly what is brain-computer interface at this moment in this live stream. I have done videos about that, so you can go and search online or at my channel, in my channel. So the read-write threshold was that my participants and in the interview and the study that I conducted, we found out that reading brains is tolerable when it brings specific kind of benefits. But writing into the brain is never tolerable. And brain-computer interfaces can do that. So by writing, they can alter our cognition, our personalities, and our memories. And also in my study, I created the story where the brain-computer interface was mandatory adaptation for the police officer, and 3/4 thought that that was not well done. Not my design, but they thought that it's against human rights. Then in insider-outsider perception gap, the most interesting finding was how citizens treated police profession and how police treated his own profession. Now, when in my design fiction story, I presented that now is the moment when this police officer is going to be softly forced to use brain-computer interface, the citizens said that, well, surely the police officer can complain, go to the union, change profession, do something else, raise his voice. And the interesting thing and fact was that then the police officer who I interviewed, and he had 20 years of career experience, he was a cybercrime unit specialist, said that unfortunately police officers, when they graduate and start their career, they kind of come as a narrow, they walk the narrow road. So there's not in the field that much possibility to change your direction, meaning that if you complain, you either have to go completely out of job or you have to adapt and kind of swallow the situation, which is not the same. I compared in my thesis, for example, how nurses operate. If you study nursery, for example, in Spain, you can do nursery in Finland, in Sweden, because there is uh, a rule in the EU that the study, the nursery study, is acknowledged and approved in all European country. The same thing does not apply to police officer, which I think is sad thing that police officer, for example, from Netherlands cannot go to Germany and become police officer there. And because of this, that police department is rather a militaristic organization, and that people who work there are prone to forced pilots. I thought that the police organizations might be prone to misusage of such technologies that might break our neuro privacy and neuro and cognitive rights, which I think is a study subject of its own that we should research on if police organizations misuse their police officers because of that semi-structured, semi-militaristic structure. A final thing about the refusal of using brain-computer interface or whatever technology that you wouldn't like is that, again, that the police officer do not have that much choice to change their career, and especially when they are later on in their career, when they have mortgage, when they have family, friends, and their friend circle usually comes from the colleagues, which also differs from many other professions. When you do, for example, IT, you have friends in different professionals, and as a police officer, you usually have your friend among your police organization. So if those social forces also keep you in your profession. The third result was that my participants believed, and well, honestly, I also believe that, they believe that brain-computer interface is going to be extremely uh, addictive machine. We are already seeing how AI is eroding and destroying our critical thinking and creativity, and brain-computer interface, which is going to be interacting with AI and is going to be immediately connected to your brain by reading your brain, and also later on going to be able to write to your brain. It is going to possibly, as my participants said, that turn us into like more of a like a passive humans who has no real character. We also found out that this could be beneficial for the organization, as bad as it sounds. But when you meet, for example, a customer servant, you expect certain kind of service, and depending of the customer servant, he might have very colorful personality. And so that colorful personality might come as a good thing or as a bad thing when you are wanting to have a service. Let's say if the customer service is very spontaneous, for example, or very like honest, very straight, they might say to you while they are serving you something that they feel is okay, but for you, you didn't like it. And if such action is not tolerated by the employee, they might, of course, educate their employees. Like not tolerated by the employer, they might educate the employees, but still the character kind of always comes. I call them character spikes. So your natural character always comes into the surface. Now, while we would be wearing a brain-computer interface, which can then read those spikes and warn you in advance that now you are about to show your character or your special traits, and then like remind you to control yourself, that might kind of even out the general service that the employer wants their customer to get. Another extremely interesting result that I found out and also then built my thoughts upon is that, well, still now, because I'm not at the moment using brain-computer interface, you do not know what I think, and I can keep them inside my skull. So whatever is there, nobody knows. And the skull is now the fortress of protection for my thoughts. When we are going to start using brain-computer interface, which is going to read what is going on in our head, we will also have to learn a completely new skill that no humans earlier had to learn. And that skill would be to separate certain thoughts and bring them to the surface of our brain, where the brain-computer interface can read and sense the electrical waves and translate that to then impulse and translate that to what we are thinking. And then to another thought, and then keep other thoughts deep into the brain controlled so that those thoughts will not be read by the machine. So in general, we are going to be forced to create this virtual cognitive fortress, which earlier was our skull as a physical thing, and now we have to have this virtual cognitive barrier somewhere inside our mind, which is sometimes letting thoughts out that are allowed to be read, and then keeping other thoughts inside which we want to protect from the machine. This is the fourth finding, and it's about mental privacy and then public trust. First of all, most of the participants felt like they are not going to feel more safe. They are going to feel much less safe if they would see a brain-computer interface augmented police officer. And this might connect to that people feel that augmented person is losing empathy. There is two things for this. There is positivity and negativity when it comes to the police officers. Before I go there, I would like to mention that it's interesting that in my story, when I showed that the police officer who was the hero of the story was using brain-computer interface, and when his emotions were monitored, and then that data, let's say, was leaked to centralized control center, and then his emotions were then used that emotional data was used against him, all people found, my participants, every participant found that as the highest violation of neuro rights, which is interesting to me because some people sometimes like to say that they are not emotional and then they do rational and they only do rational decisions. I argue that we are very emotional and our decisions are always also highly emotional. But if I think of those people who like to think of themselves as highly rational and non-emotional persons, if some of those people were among my participants, they still found out that when a machine is intruding our emotions, that's the highest level of neuro right violation. Then a word about the empathy. So my police participant said that he sees sometimes police officers who has empathy, high empathy, and then some people have no empathy at all. And empathy is a good skill for a police officer to have. Not too much empathy, but a little bit. But then he said that maybe it would be beneficial to have brain-computer interfaces, which are again reading our brains, and which are again reading our brains and providing us with the data from our inner thoughts and inner cognitive situation. And when they sense that, well, first of all, the brain-computer interface would have to connect the situation and the environment where the police officer is operating at the moment, and then see that in this environment, there would be a good thing to have a little bit of empathy. The brain-computer interface could then check, is empathy building in that police officer's brain? And if not, then it could provide like an input and a reminder to the police officer that maybe in this situation you could use a little bit more empathiness when you interact with this client of yours. And so those people who have no empathy at all could artificially produce and change their actions so that they at least appear to be empathic. One other very important thing and finding was that people, when we talk about brain-computer interface and their possibility to read mind, people often bring out, oh, it's like 1984 Orwell's book, or yeah, I remember that Spielberg's Minority Report movie where people were arrested before they even committed the crime. They were arrested because the machine was reading their minds and predicting and knowing that this person is thinking about making a crime and he's going to soon make a crime, and then they get arrested. So this is a very special psychological fear that we have, that these utopical scenarios are going to happen. Those scenarios that we safely watched from our living room and thought that, wow, that's an interesting movie and I hope that that will never happen. And now, unfortunately, we are starting to live in the time where such technology is possible. Now, if I would be a brain-computer interface producer or like a product maker, I would have to treat this psychological fear that people are having when I would be publishing and marketing my brain computer. So somehow in their marketing, they would have to, me as a brain computer interface maker, I would have to win the public trust that with my brain-computer interface, I am not producing Minority Report. Or with my brain-computer interface, I am not going to read your mind and then set you in the jail because you made a thought crime. Then we start to approach the finish in this live stream, and that in this slide I wanted to have some words about design fiction. So design fiction is fictionary design, but it's well connected to facts. And with such practices, you can create a product that people would use and see and then experience real emotions. And that's what my master thesis and the design fiction artifact in it did very well. The thing is that because I produced my design fiction artifact, which was a story about a police officer who was mandated to use brain-computer interface. So I connected that story to a true academical theories, like for example extended mind, which means that when you use a tool that is so well and operates so well that you start to kind of feel that the tool is part of you. And in my scenario, the brain-computer interface was so well operating that the police officer started to kind of feel not sure if the brain-computer interface is the one that is giving the thoughts or his own brains that are producing the ideas. And while I connect these academical theories to my story and provided the story to my participants, the participants then saw those theories and then reacted to those theories without priming me to say that, well, in this very moment, we are now talking about the extended self theory. No, they were not knowing. My participants didn't know about which theory I was at the moment, like which theory was at the moment connected to that specific story. Good thing about proper and strong design fiction is that it produces true, real emotions. It's like a product in a movie. I'm going to give you an example. So when you, for example, watch Matt Damon had made a movie when he was in a Mars alone. And when you watch that movie of Matt Damon being there alone, you can relate to that person. But then, as a design fiction product, if I would like to like study what kind of feelings you would have if you would be alone, I could create as a design fiction product a shuttle, like a space shuttle, here on Earth, and then put you and let you live there alone for a week. And then that shuttle would be the design fiction artifact. And I would be interviewing and also watching your actions and your emotions and thoughts are real inside that design fiction product. And that's how design fiction is really effective of producing true real emotions and honesty in in the participants' responses. And to be able to make my design fiction product and my design fiction story very effective, I used Joseph Campbell's hero's journey structure, which is used by thousands of films and stories in Hollywood, and it's known structure of creating storyline which produces, which touches us profoundly. So my design fiction story was not only connected to academical theories, it was also crafted as an interesting narrative, which has a beginning, the end, and hooks. It's very important for design fiction product to be to 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 work that way. As a second to final slide, I'd just like to right. So we are back online. That's the beauty of doing things live. You never know when you lose your internet, and I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. So yeah, let's just continue that. Yeah, about the individual calibration that my participants provided with a message, with a clear message that they want the machines to be able individually calibrated to our stress levels. For example, if their machines mission was to measure our stress and help us manage the stress, and especially if the stress levels are then monitored by the employer. So for example, if a person is having too much stress at their work and the stress starts to affect the quality of the work, that person will be sent home. Something that is going on in for example, in Asia, where train drivers are using neurocaps. This project started in 2018, and that neurocap is measuring their stress level, if there are an awareness level. If they are not aware, they go home. Now, so that's what it is, and because my stress level is different to your stress level, so if, for example, I am very stressful, normally stressful, the machine might read that as too much stress, even though I am very good at managing my stress. So that's why personal and individual calibration is very important. Then to keep the baseline competence, my participants said that police officer has to periodically train as non-augmented, as I call them biological biological police officers, so that they will not need their cognitive and their mind to be augmented by a machine, so that they will maintain their baseline competence. And as extremely important, which is also one of the Marcello Ianca's uh, neuro rights that he and his team provided for us in 2017, sorry, is that my participants said that the voluntary adaptation of brain-computer interface is a must, highly important, so that in every individual level, people have possibility to choose either to use augmentation or to not to. So in one line, what I said, everything that I said above, is that people do not reject mind reading machines outright, but what they do not like is that if the mind reading machine is capturing their control. As a final slide, I'd just like to remind you that please do subscribe to my Human Enhancement with Konstantin Nikkari channel. And also let me know now in the chats, what did you like about this presentation? And if you have any questions, I'm here now to answer them. You can activate the chats and see if there is somebody asking any questions. Thank you very much for listening to this. I think this was like 40-minute presentation. And one of the first, if not the first, that I ever recorded this way. So with the live streaming to Twitch and Kick, I'm going to use this as my material to just upload it to the Human Enhancement channel. And by repeating myself, I do this because I want to develop a public speaking skill. And if I would just pre-record and publish that, I would never learn to really adapt to situations where I have to think from the very first try correctly and communicate myself correctly from the very first time. Of course, I do practice speaking and I'm thinking what I'm going to say in specific slide beforehand. But when I present that, I think it's exciting to be in front of you here online. So let's see if I have any chats or talks. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to anybody to say much about this because this topic is very out of normal topics that you would see in Kick and Twitch, and that's okay. Maybe when I will continue doing this, people will get to know me firstly, and they will adapt to that. Constantine sometimes streams games and silly content, and then sometimes he lets his audience know about brain reading machines and about the first steps of mankind of producing augmented humans. Now, thank you very much for being with me, and I'm going to see you then on a later time. My name is Konstantin Nikkari. Bye.